And on to the final fixture of the Autumn Nations Cup this weekend between Scotland and France. It's the Sunday game. It's going to be on the 22nd of November at 3 o'clock kickoff in Murrayfield in Scotland, so home advantage for the Scots. And it is going to be refereed by Wayne Barnes, who found himself on TMO duty last week and being hilarious.
Yeah, he gave us one of the gemmy moments of the weekend when Xander Fagerson went over and he was chatting back about it. He was like, oh yeah, and then 3 trundles over.
Yeah, one of the funniest tries ever scored, that Xander Fagerson try. I can't fathom what the Italians were doing there, but it was hilarious.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Bellini in particular,
just standing off looking at the ref.
Yeah.
And it's reasons like that they never win games. but anyway, back to this game. If forecasts are to be trusted, then it's going to be a cool and windy day in Edinburgh, but clear skies, 8 Celsius and about 35 km/h winds is what's being forecast.
It's clear skies, so no wetness, but 8 Celsius, quite cool one.
That's
and,
true.
Heavy winds. They're the heaviest winds of the weekend.
Yes, but considering how far north we are, like it's Scotland in November, we won't expect too much, and then we'll be pleasantly surprised if anything.
It has a factor in terms of France as well. They don't really love the cold. I think they'd prefer to be playing in Sydney this weekend than Edinburgh.
Sydney, but for sure. But as far as the colour of the game, though, from France's perspective, it is now going to be their last outing with their first team, considering the LNR views. That was set to be last week in Fiji, but that game obviously didn't go ahead, cancelled due to COVID, so the first selected team for France, the first selected squad, still available for this week, so we'd expect them to continue before they ring the changes. And in terms of this season, their one blip of the season, that first team that has had a tremendous season apart from it, came against Scotland. So they will, like as is the case with France this November, they missed out on the chance last week to avenge that Fiji demon. They did exercise the demons of Ireland in Paris and put them to the sword, and they'll be looking to remedy this against Scotland as well. So they'll be out for vengeance here, I make no doubt.
Yeah, and it's obviously the last game of the season for a lot of these guys.
First
team players
want to sign off on a high note rather than a kind of an annoying, frustrating one,
which has been a very good season for them
for sure.
Scotland, on the other hand, are in decent shape. You know, they've had a very good season, 5 wins on the bounce. They have lost their 2 out halves and have struggled to get their offense going in as a consequence of that. Indeed,
just as far as your 5 in a row goes, just for the colour, they've done that twice this century, the last time being in 2011, and should they win this game and make it 6, that'll be the first time they've gone 6 in a row since 1990. Apparently.
It's not often done.
It's not. So
non-all-black teams.
So there's undoubtedly a very good period of play for both these teams, Scotland and France, kind of feeling good about themselves. Scotland will be a little rocked by their showing last week. Obviously, they've lost 2 10s. Their attack did look blunter for us. They struggled against an Italian side that we know aren't for the struggling against. If you're a top team, you can put them to the sword. They will be buoyed by the fact that they got themselves four scores, 4 tries, bonus point win, get out of Dodge, and so that's very encouraging. But this is obviously a much bigger test, so they'll be nervous going into it.
100%. From the point of view of the squads, Scotland obviously have some interesting decisions to make. They lost Rory Sutherland last week.
That is a huge loss. We were only singing his praises. He brought a new bite and a new energy and a new aggression to that Scottish scrum. Now, Keble is a very, very capable
who was great off the bench.
Lieutenant to him, was great off the bench. But the question is, what comes off the bench this time with Sutherland?
The answer is Jamie Batty.
Jamie Batty probably. We were thinking Schoeman might be an option, but he was togged out again for Edinburgh against Leinster on Monday, and Batty is the one
Batty's the guy in the squad. So it'll be Jamie Batty, which is definitely a weakness, but still a solid scrum. Again, like I don't see France getting the edge against them. Xander Fagerson is sort of the hidden gem of the Scottish side. He hasn't got all the plaudits that Sutherland has got, but he's scrummaged aggressively.
Considering how much of a stalwart Nell had to be in there a few years ago, because he was the only way to shore it up at tight head. Now Nell is being sprung from the bench, and you have a quality guy starting for you, grabbing hilarious tries in Rome, doing top-notch things. So we're big Xander Fagerson fans.
So the squad still has a lot of heft and a lot of physicality to it. Obviously, one of the questions that, for my money, they have yet to answer is what to do at 10, which is, with the situation.
Is Weir really their best choice?
He didn't look great. There are people picking him in their their team of the week, which I thought was bizarre because for my money he really didn't get much going.
One of the worst parts of their whole life.
Yeah,
all of the
really,
offense they did get going for the tries came off 9 or off the maul.
There were a few occasions where he was in position to throw that like Russell pass and he just didn't or couldn't and wouldn't, and
it was his missed tackle that
like,
gave the Italians their try.
Yeah, he knows his own limitations and there's value in that. Maybe he is a guy who likes to step up to the criticism and respond with a big performance, but he's much more limited than what the options they have had. So I wonder. I'm not sure if they will look at a Stewie Hogg or bringing in a Pete Horn, but
Pete Horn has been there for Glasgow doing it. It might be a better passing option just in terms of a like for like stylistically with Hastings and Finn. As their go-to guys, like I know he's a little looser, and we're not huge fans of Horn and 10, but he's definitely more in that mould. Yeah. And there were a few instances where Weir was in position, and there were guys like it just looked like that pass was missing from their toolkit, and that has been like their main avenue for success in terms of their backline multi-phase is that sexy pass that is coming often from Finn but sometimes from Hastings.
So they definitely have concerns there. Likewise, Jamie Ritchie apparently could be in doubt, which is huge.
Himself and Fraser Brown are actually both undergoing their HIAs as it stands now. The teams haven't been named when we're shooting this on Wednesday, but Ritchie and Fraser Brown in a race to try and make themselves available for it, so they're still a doubt this weekend. And then similarly, Antamac is out with for France. This is for an unspecified injury. We couldn't find the details of it, but we do know that the uncapped Louis Carbonell has replaced him in the squad. Toulon man, very good player himself, kind of out and out 10. So that's
Carbonell comes in, and they don't have to worry about drafting guys in anymore because everyone who comes in new who hasn't played yet can play for the rest of the window.
That's right,
which is good from a Top Couture's point of view. I see him, Sekou Makalu down here, who's making headlines because he's going to come into the French squad in the next couple of weeks. He was brilliant. He's a brilliant open side flanker who was superb for Stade Francais, and there's a lot of hype about him. Yeah. But for this week, I think they will likely resort to the team that has been set and go with something similar. I'm curious to see what they do at 10. They have plenty of options. They could go with Dupont in there. They could go with Ramos in there, although I'd be surprised. Yeah. They could bring Carbonell straight in and start him and keep the system going. It's not actually as game breaking a position for them as it is for other teams.
Yeah, and the question is, like, Dupont is your main playmaker from 9. Yeah. Do you want to change that? Like, you could obviously Baptiste Saran with Dupont at 10.
Reads pretty nice.
Reads pretty nice, but I think it's probably less effective for them. I think Dupont is their playmaker from 9, and I think Carbonell could slot straight in as a like for like change without rocking the boat as much as taking your main playmaker out of 9. But we will remain to see what decisions they make as far as that. They do have options. Options aplenty,
and it's not going to stop them either way, playing with the same flair and offensive approach.
35 km/h winds and a bit of wet and rain could disrupt them in that potentially.
But it's not going to be raining apparently. It's going to be clear skies with cold wet conditions, but a serious wind.
Yes, so just moving on to the game itself, we will look, as we have done with all the games, we'll look at the attacking, the winning conditions for both sides and what they will look to do on either side of the ball. And we're going to start with the hosts, which are Scotland. So when Scotland are attacking, what are they looking to do? I think this is the point of main concern coming from that Italian showing, was just how much blunter they looked without their first two choice 10s.
No question.
They were a lot more off. It was all off Ali Price really, and it was kind of in the second half. It was the physicality of their forwards and like things like their line out drive that kind of bailed them out of there and created some of the scores that they did get. But they were a little bludgeoning.
Well, the bludgeoning is an element that they're going to have to bring. It's an element that they brought when they beat France back in the Six Nations. They are going to look to get on top of those contacts. They have a brutally strong tight five and forward pack in general. Hamish Watson is getting into his top form, which is a danger for France for sure. So just getting on top of those contacts around the fringes is going to be huge for them. They also have absolute danger. They do have danger in that back three. Hogg's form is good. Duhan van der Merwe, superb.
He is the form attacking player for them. He came in to grab that try when they needed it in the first half. Probably the most important try for them to keep them in touch in that first half.
And Darcy Graham likewise can finish from anywhere as well. The centres, they're decent. What they're missing really is the distribution from 10, which is why I'd like to see Hogg really come in, and even with whoever it is, if it's Duncan Weir, etc., I'd like to see Hogg take some responsibility mobility off them and come in and try and distribute.
Yeah.
The centres do pick good lines. I think
they nearly linked for that. Would have been a Duncan Weir try, actually. They got you saw a glimpse of what they could create on offence. It was a shame that the final pass did go forward from,
that's right,
Johnson.
But Johnson and Harris are superb players. Like they pick nice lines. They're not the most flash in the world, but they do run off one another, and they will look to punch holes, especially if it's if there's a bit of softness in the French defence in the cold.
Which there could be, yeah.
Like if they can get on top. Those guys picking lines in the tight is how they get our initial plays going, and then getting the ball wide, trying to get the likes of Van der Merwe and Darcy Graham into the game. If things are a little blunt, if they're not able to get to the outside and France are shutting it down, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have Duhan Van der Merwe come in a little narrow, run inside, balls off the 10s. He has shown willingness to do that. Or off the 9s. A lot of it has come through Ali Price. If Duncan Weir or whoever they pick there isn't quite cutting it, then it will narrow up and come off 9. And picking the good lines off 9 and 10 is really the difference between dominant carries or not for them. Because trundling into touch slowly or trundling into contact slowly and in a telegraph fashion, French will love that. But if you can bring a little deception, a little verve, a little tempo to your own game, you know that this French defence can be we saw it a couple of weeks back in the Ireland game. We as much as that was a comfortable win for France, there were moments in that game where they really were struggling to just deal with being in the wrong area of the pitch and having to make tackles. And that's what Scotland need to bring. Like they need just a little bit of versatility. Obviously, some speed from Ali Price would be nice. But putting them under pressure, constantly carrying dynamic carries with sharp lines being picked onto soft shoulders. If you can bust your way through a few contacts, this is where France get very frustrated.
It's true.
They don't have too many jacklers in their team, and they like to have the ball.
Yeah.
So if Scotland can hold the ball and rumble, get some phases going, get the edge going with their many classy ball runners of Hamish Watsons and Sam Johnsons, that's the rhythm that they're trying to create. And then they have players to take tries 100% in the wide channels.
They will need to, but that is definitely their recipe. What about when they're defending though? The French love to attack them and love to attack all teams. So the Scottish defence will obviously have a task containing what is quite a dangerous, quite a tempo-filled, exciting team.
They conceded a pretty soft try against Italy as well straight after they'd scored. France will score all day.
In that kind of space, if you fall off a tackle
loose
like
kicking
that,
is one area where I'd say like the Ali Price box kicks, something that Ireland did against France 2 weeks ago, and it just played them into the game. Right when they were struggling, it was just
Ali Price is going to slow everything down. Be told to use it, and then 6 seconds later get pinned for
their
not
instincts.
Using it.
France's instincts are superb, and they're so confident at the moment. When Sexton put a bomb up and Boutier caught it, and instantly everyone was dialed in, and they ran in and scored a superb try. I think Endemak got the touchdown, but it was made by Dupont and Boutier. But their list of classy attackers is as long as their backline. They've Vakatawa can come in; he's a sensational footballer himself. And Gael Ficou is in flying form. Great footwork, great link-up play. They try and get it to the wide channels and link up so well with one another. Pick such smart lines and very rarely make handling errors. So from a Scottish point of view, I think your first port of call is to hold your width. You can't allow yourself to get sucked in, and the way that you can hold your width is if you are making good strong tackles on the inside. France will move it back, move it off first phase. They'll try to move it wide. The importance of the Johnson-Harris dynamic is massive in terms of getting them up and making sure there's just no holes on that inside of the field.
That's vital because they have a serious job containing Vakatawa. If Vakatawa can get in between those two centres and get a hand away, which he can, we know, but that's obviously it's a terrible picture for Scotland. Your two key defensive players in the back line are out of the game and the ball's away. That's France all day long. But between those, you need to have guys in the tight just denying them any progress. Your Watsons, your Thompsons, your Greys, your Cumminses, they need to win their collisions.
Absolutely.
When they're first up with a Frenchman running down their channel, drive him back.
And that's something they've been good at. Something they've been good at. And it's something they didn't give France any soft entrances to the game back in the Six Nations, and as a result, France couldn't really do much in the cold in Murrayfield, and they were caught cold and they weren't really able to get outside them. And that's what Scotland need to bring, just making sure that they have that width, even when France are in the middle of the field, spread out on both sides of the ball, eyes open, and just force them to make plays on the inside in order to open up the outside, because France want to be on the outside.
They do. So if you can force them narrow and then couple dominant tackles with a breakdown menace, because as much as France don't have jacklers, Scotland very do. They have jacklers and harriers and disruptors.
Depending on whether we get Ritchie or Fraser Brown in, either of them can be great, and obviously Hamish Watson.
Even McAnally, if he's in there, can do so as well. These guys make their bread and butter out of slowing the ruck ball of France down, forcing them into narrow collisions that they're not winning, and then slowing it down.
If they can get on top of the breakdown, that's a huge entrance to the game.
So it's mind your discipline. Obviously, you could be pinned if you're getting reckless or just throwing hands in there when you oughtn't. You don't need to be doing that, but be disciplined, but be smart.
Be disciplined, hold your width, beat their pack.
Yes,
and those are the three battles. Because Scotland, 5 wins on the bounce, they're going to be confident about their ability to get plays off, especially in the tight areas, which is where they've won most of these games. It hasn't been Finn Russell.
No.
These 5 games, he's played. Did he play one of them against Georgia?
Yeah. But he came off the bench against Georgia.
Well, there you go. And then he got injured. So it hasn't been Finn Russell. It's been the forward pack winning these games for them. And they've beaten France already.
It's true.
And they should be buoyant and confident about their ability to do it again. And that goes for the defence as well.
Yeah. And I think just the one final point on the defence is obviously the back three pendulum minded by Hogg. You will need to mind for some probing kicks. But I think actually more to the point is you kind of have to expect that Vakatawa will get some plays off and manage to get outside your centres. So there will be some tackling responsibility on your Darcy Grahams, your Van der Merwes and your Hoggs. And they have been a little soft on occasion in that exact capacity, either like particularly Hogg retreating, not the tackle but retreating after the bouncing ball over his own line. He's been at his least assured in that exact scenario.
He had the two tries conceded in the Six Nations, and then wasn't there a moment last week?
Yeah, he got carried it back over because he didn't want to put himself in. He looks shaky there, and France will try and probe outside those channels, try and isolate those wingers and pull Hogg out of his position. So they'll the pendulum will be important for kicks, but also they will have to expect to need to make tackles to shut down these plays at the last second, because as you say, France are going to look to get wide, so they can't be shocked when they get wide. That'll be criminal for them to not be expecting the French flooding of the wide channels with some numbers.
For sure.
But then we move on to the set piece, which will obviously be an interesting dynamic. The Scottish scrum has been imperious all year, has been taking names all year, but a huge factor in that is it's been Rory Sutherland scrumming aggressively.
It has.
And he is gone.
I have been a big fan of Ollie Cavill for years.
Oh, he's very good.
He's come into the Scotland squad now. He's qualified through residency.
Yeah.
I think he can make plays in there. I also think that this big man Xander Fagerson is an excellent scrummager himself.
He can lock it down from tight head.
I don't think lock it down. I think they can and will try and go at the French scrum.
I hope so.
Think they've had one of the best scrums in Europe all year. They have a mighty strong engine room, as well as big strong props. They're a team that scrums to attack now at this point, and scrums for penalties, and I don't expect that to change. I expect them to double down and really go for it.
Yeah, but I similarly expect France to be trying to do so as well. Their pack can be dangerous. I think their props can scrummage aggressively too.
Yeah, I don't see France getting on top in the scrum. Maybe. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. In fact, I think Scotland, France, have a good scrum, and they could well lock it down, and it could be a non-factor, which I think is what France will go for. I don't think they're going to try and get the better of the Scottish pack there. I think Xander Fagerson might be the best tight head scrummager in Europe, as well as Rory Sutherland being the best loose head scrummager.
It might be. It's definitely an interesting dynamic. It is a shame about Rory Sutherland. We are big fans of him on the podcast.
No question. It's definitely a weakness, but I still think that the Scots should absolutely be going to scrum for penalties, in my mind anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, sure. Then the line out as well has actually been good for both sides, I think, and Scotland have rotated their hookers, and it's still been pretty good for them.
Most consistent dart throwers, perhaps.
Yeah, and similarly, France have, between the Marchand-Chat combination, 2 world-class hookers and a load of line-out jumpers. Their back row all jump for it, and their row, they really do try and mix it up, and both of them like to launch from that set piece in the middle third, get their backs involved, and then the line-out maul becomes a factor in the 22. It becomes a big factor.
France probably won't go to it that often,
no, they won't.
But Scotland will.
So how's France maul defence going? How is Bernard Leroux or Willemse planning to stifle this maul? That's a question mark for me.
Aldrich is often the guy they put into that role, trying to pick his way through. And
he does do a good front crawl through the maul, which is a winning technique.
Important skill,
So it'll be interesting to see if teams can defend it. I think with both sides, I think there's potential for the set piece to be kind of combative and prickly and stop, start and changing. But I think if one side is to start to edge all of these little areas, I think a key maul try or something could be what breaks the back of this game for either side. I don't know which.
I think there's a good chance that this game is slow and physical, and neither side's getting the edge, as has been the case with many Scotland games in recent times, and then clutch play one way or the other is what wins it.
Yeah, and I think it could come from set piece, because I think there'll be chop and change around the 60-minute mark as well. I think the third quarter there could be some big game-breaking kind of score for either side, and it'll be just curious to see who's getting on top in those exchanges. But we'll move on to France, and from France's visiting perspective, when they have the ball, what are they planning to do? I'd imagine they'd want to move these Scots around. They don't want to run in the tight.
They want to probe at the wide channels. I mean, France have had this. They were brilliant against Ireland, in terms of doing this. They stand very deep. Their passing is very crisp. They exploit. They were very good at exploiting inexperienced shooters. And I think there was one occasion when at the start of the game when Sexton took on the role of shooter in the Irish line. Just took a step to the inside, shrugged him off, moved the ball on. There was space. Fiku gets the ball, checks the run of Andrew Porter, and away he goes. And that's all. Like, their instincts are so sharp that just giving them the one-on-one matchups in the wide channels is often enough. Exactly right. So it's about, like, even off first and second phase, moving that ball wide, but then crucially with guys like Vakatawa picking short lines through the middle of the Scots. So if Scotland are trying to drift, they can prepare to have to make a hefty tackle on someone running a serious line.
Sit down Harris, who's probably their most physical backline defender, sit him down and create the space.
So just running those little shapes, getting the Scots to sit down, and then rapido are away, and they tend to pack those wide channels with players, all of whom have flair and ability. That's their picture. Their offense is raw skill and raw width.
It is,
and it's beautiful to watch at its best, and bloody difficult to stop, because they've got a potent combination of speed, vision, offloading, and physicality.
Yes, well, as I was thinking with it in terms of that physicality, guys like Olivon Leroux, Aldrit and Willemse will need to be mobile around the park, because resourcing that offensive breakdown, whatever about your defensive breakdown, but offensive breakdown will be, like, Scotland will be trying to harry them there at source. So there is an onus on, like, even if you do get wide and you nearly get through, be there to resource that next breakdown.
They should have somebody with a mind to watching Hamish Watson
the whole time on clear out mode. Because they have danger. Scotland are a danger. Even if you make a half break, you can get yourself isolated, and Scotland love that. They love turning it over because it saps the momentum from you. Can't allow that to happen. So big pack leaders need to be mobile and up for that. And then after that, like, it's mainly through Dupont and whoever is into Phil into Max Shirt. It's getting that, switching the point of contact, keeping that quick ruck ball.
Yeah, Dupont runs it so well. He knows where the space is. He knows where the defence is weak.
And then probably run a little to sit the line down before giving it wide as well. They sit
depending on what he sees. Like, he's got great vision, and they play with flow, and they are really in sync with one another as an offense these days.
True.
And with Dupont leading the way, so he can go blind or open depending on what he sees, and he's always a danger on the line as well. So that's an absolute handful for a Scottish defence, and that's what it has to be from France. It's important that they just keep the tempo up and keep the belief in themselves to move the ball, and to really probe, and even if it doesn't happen for them in the first 20 minutes, it'll come.
Have faith that it will.
Exactly. And if Scotland are having a poor offence by comparison, they do need to punish them with tries. They do need to put tries on the board, especially away from home. Just plant those seeds of doubt and build up a score that the Scots can't respond to if their offence is struggling and it's taken them a bit more bludgeoning work to score tries. That's what they did with Ireland. Like, they got into a shootout with a team. Ireland were a team who are slow at scoring, not dissimilar to this Scottish team at the moment, and they ended up just outdoing them in the shootout by racking up the scores, putting the scoreboard pressure on them.
They did the same against Wales the week prior. They've been racking up scores and putting the pressure on, so their offense is kind of their pivotal point, but ideally they want to find their flow. They sometimes do struggle, as we've said, in Murrayfield to find that same flow. Sometimes the passes
they are going to be cold as well.
They'll be a little colder. They'll need to be
They've got to rise to that challenge.
They do.
Like,
they've got to accept that, not be surprised by it, certainly not be shocked by it, and be ready to play their game against these Scots. And
because they should believe in themselves that they are one of the best teams out there, and this is a real... Like, it's a really good challenge for France. They're going away from home to a team that's got 5 wins on the bounce, who beat them earlier in the year, the only blemish on their season so far. And they have a chance to put it right. It's a great challenge. They're a difficult team. They're always niggly and tough and physical. But France have a supremely talented team at the moment, and are going to be quicker and more skillful than their opponents, and they should put them to bed. So it's a proper challenge for their attack.
It is for their attack. As for their defence, like, we know they'll have to front up physically. We know they'll have to match the Scottish runners on the line. They know Scotland are going to bring a lot off 9, so they need to pack that channel and be cohesive and aggressive, abrasive in the contact.
Yeah.
We know that they don't have the out and out poach men until Shaq comes on in the second half usually.
Yeah.
So target the pill in the contact, try and make that scrappy. If it's a little slippery.
You're looking to get Scotland frustrated essentially.
Yeah.
Like Scotland are great when they get tempo going and when they get when their like centres are picking hard lines and then they can get quick ball around the corner.
Yeah.
But everything's a little bit more stunted without Hastings or Russell in there at 10. And so if they can get out of the line and chop the Scots down and not allow them to get any sort of dominant carries going on offence, fronting up to the likes of Johnny Gray and Cummings as well when they're going around the corner, Scotland will slow it up and kick a box kick, and then it's on the back three to get it.
Well, it's first field it, but then you can transition, which is where they want to be. Yeah, like guys like Vanson, I think Vanson should be shooting up and in on the 10 channel because, as you say, Finn's not there. Pressure that pass so that you do force them a bit more narrow, and then you have your likes of Aldred or Olivon who are pacey off the line. Just shut down that space, and really do pressure the 10 channel because. Shy of that Finn over the top, like an out to in blitz is not a bad thing to bring against Scotland right now when they don't have the threat of that Finn Russell over the top pass. So I think it could be a matter of just be cohesive, be aggressive, be hard off the line, and try and coach kicks out of this Scotland team. If you can get this Scotland team kicking to you, then you're one step closer to your goal, which is just having the ball and having fun with it, attacking them.
100%. In terms of predictions, in terms of how we think this one is going to go. Away in Murrayfield for France, how do you feel they're set?
I actually have a sneaking suspicion France might win this. It's a
sneaking suspicion. I mean, I'd say they're favourites, aren't they?
They might be now with Finn out of it. I think they are going to win it. I think the Scots are a little rattled after last week. I'd be very impressed if they can hold it together and impose themselves up front again on this French team and just punish them in the wind and the misery of Edinburgh. Make it a kind of an Edinburgh showing. I would be impressed, but I actually think this France team are just I have a lot of time for them. I think they're motoring on. I think they're buoyed by confidence, and I think they will have a bone to pick here. Yeah. And I expect they will come.
I think they were hungry to play Fiji last week, and I expect them to bring some of that hunger.
Yeah,
is one of the things you'd said is that in the context of this 4-year World Cup cycle, you expect to see less of France being just dialed out.
Yeah, I don't expect to see it as often at all.
In terms of how it's going to go, it's hard to know will the Scots bring the frustrating game that they can bring. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll make it ugly enough, and then it's anybody's game. But yeah, I think on the balance of it, on the evidence of what we've seen in recent times, I think France will have the clutch play in them, especially without a crowd for some reason in Murrayfield.
It changes the
dynamic. It's not quite the same as the French on the road usually.
Yeah.
But it could be. I mean, that's still a big question mark.
I've seen French sides put in poor showings in Scotland before.
Like their two games against Ireland and Wales were at home.
Yeah.
And I believe their victory over England was at home.
That's true. They definitely travelling French thing.
A road win against a team that's in form would be a significant milestone for a French team because it's still an area they really struggle with. So yeah, I'm jostling between two positions. I'll say it'll be tight, but France will pull off a winning score after Scotland fail to recognise that they need to get one more score to win a game. France steal it away from them. So that's what I'll say what happens. I'll say about a 2-point win for France.
Ooh, okay.
Stealing it at the death.
I'm going to push that a little. I'll say about an 8-point win for France.
Okay.
And a disappointing showing from Scotland.
Maybe
it might be 6 in a row. There might
6 in a row. Like they're at home. That is a factor.
It is. I think it's a tight one. I think it's a very, very good game. To be honest, between two good sides. So yeah. More rugby to look forward to.
Yeah, in this monster weekend of international rugby. Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and subscribe. And hey, if you have an opinion of your own, if you disagree with what we're saying, leave a comment down below. We might just get back to you.